I can do it. I can do it. All right. So just for the recording, this is Uncomplicating Tarot on Saturday, December 26th with Valorie teaching us. So here you go, Val. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for everyone coming. I'm so excited and so glad that you guys all want to learn about tarot. Tarot or tarot. Okay, so funny story. I have to tell this story. My daughter, when she was younger, she always pronounced, I can't even say it the right way, Chipotle, the restaurant, Chipotle. And my brain will not say it the right way. So it doesn't matter if you say tarot or tarot, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, as Bill Murray says. I am going to, let me first tell you how this is going to flow. So first we're going to talk about the cards, and we're going to give a basic overview of what a tarot deck is. Then we're going to have question and answer if you have any specific questions about specific cards. And then we're going to get more into reading, like how would you do a reading as the cards are spread out in front of you. So I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share. I hope I have it set up right. Yay, it's working. Okay.
Please put that down. It goes in the box.
Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about, let's see if I can get this going, is what is tarot? So tarot is a way of divination, is what it's technically called. But I like to say it's a way of opening a conversation between me, the person who's asking the question, and source. It's just a conversation starter. The traditional tarot deck is made up of 78 cards. And I will say that it started out as a playing card game, a card playing game, way back when, I don't know. And then Rider Waite came along, which I believe are two separate people, and kind of standardized it, standardized all the symbolism, standardized all the cards, made it 78 cards. And that's like the standard that most tarot decks are built upon going forward ever since Rider Waite came and made their deck. So there are many interpretations and many different imagery, but they all pretty much stay to the traditional Rider Waite deck. I don't personally own a Rider Waite deck, but that would be a good place to start because yes, there we go. Because you'll be able to get more familiar with the traditional imagery. And then when you buy alternate decks or decks that change that imagery, you'll still be able to refer back to the original imagery. So tarot is a deck made up of 78 cards, as I've mentioned. There are standard and non-standard tarot decks. 78 cards is a standard deck. Each card in the deck has its own imagery, symbolism, and meaning. And when you're going into a reading cards are read in relationship to one another. So they're often laid out in a particular spread, more than one card, and you read them, I like to use the word interplay, as an interplay with one another. So why would you even want to read tarot? What's tarot about? Well, like I mentioned, it opens a conversation between you and source if you're reading for yourself, or between you, source, and the other person if you're reading for someone else. So they can provide insight and guidance into the person's circumstances or situations in life. It can give you a deeper perspective, often a different perspective from the one that you currently hold, on your challenges or any repeating patterns that might be coming up in your life. And so it's a really good tool for inner wisdom, because all wisdom is inner, and we always want to turn within ourselves to find those truths and answer those questions. And tarot is a great way to do that. So let's talk about the 78 cards. And what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into, well, we're going to break it down and we'll go from there. So I am just expanding my screen. Uh-oh. Go back, go back. I'm trying to expand my screen so that I'm going to let Ari see it. I can't see everybody's reaction. So if somebody's doing something or asking a question, I can't see it. The 78 cards. So there is the major arcana, which are 22 cards, kind of viewed as the trump cards of the deck. And those 22 cards usually point to major life changes or situations. It's the overall big picture. Then we have what's called the minor arcana, which are all of the other cards, so 56 cards. And the minor arcana are broken into 4 different suits. Traditionally, those are swords, cups, wands, and pentacles. And then out of those 4 suits, we have court cards, which are 16 cards, which is 4 cards per suit. So the court cards are page, knight, queen, and king. So you have 4 in each suit, which makes 16 cards. And those court cards are usually archetypes. They represent people in your life or yourself or different situations, but they're the archetypes of the minor arcana. And then we have the number cards, which are the other 40 cards. And those cards represent day-to-day life, various situations we face in our everyday life. And those are numbered ace, which would be 1, ace through 10. So that's the basic overall of how the 78 cards are broken down. And I do want to mention that as I go through this presentation, these are overall general basic terms. These are by no means all inclusive, and you will be able to, in your own research and as you read cards, you'll find different authors, I guess I would want to call them, deck creators, assign different meanings or different words or different key phrases to their cards. They're all valid. Find which one resonates with you the most and work with that deck. This is just a basic general overview. So let me go back. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the major arcana. And as I mentioned, those are the 22 cards. We'll go over what they are, but they're the 22 cards that reveal messages about the bigger overall picture. They usually point to major life changes or situations. Each one of these cards on their own singly have their own deep meanings. It would be beneficial if you're trying to learn tarot for yourself or for others to spend some time getting to know each of the cards in the major arcana. Because of the depth of each one of those cards, we will not go over those cards individually because there's just too much to get into for each one of 22 cards. But I will tell you that as a whole, the 22 cards in the major arcana also tell a story. So it starts with the card 0. So the 22 cards are numbered 0 through 21. And the 0 card is the Fool. But the Fool isn't a fool. There you go. Thank you. The Fool isn't a fool as you would think of, like dumb or mentally challenged. The Fool is lighthearted. It's an archetype which represents innocence, beginning, childlike wonder. And this innocent Fool makes his journey through the major arcana and visits each one of the 21 other cards. So it's about his journey as he meets these other lessons, trials, successes, setbacks, major life accomplishments that we all experience on our life path. And it's his journey as he meets up with each one of those in the arcana. I hope that made sense. So like I said, I will go over what those major arcana cards are, but we're not going to get into the meaning of each card. If you have gotten into tarot yourself and you have one of these cards that you just can't wrap your mind around the meaning, or you have a question about one of the cards, please save that for the question and answer, and I'll be happy to answer the specific general meaning for one of the major arcana cards. So I'm just going to read them. The Fool, as we mentioned, is our card 0, and this is in order the path that he takes as he meets each one of these major arcana archetypes. So the Magician, the High Priestess, the Empress, the Emperor, the Hierophant, I believe I said that right, the Lovers, the Chariot, Strength, the Hermit, Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man, Death, Temperance, the Devil, the Tower, the Star, the Moon, the Sun, Judgment, and the World. I would like to mention that the Sun, I believe the Sun and the World are the 2 cards that have no negative connotation. So we'll talk a little bit later about upright and reversed cards. But these two cards, they have no negative, no reversed meaning. The sun and the world are always positive. So that's a good sign if you're drawing that a lot in your tarot readings. Okay, the next one, did I skip one? No, maybe. Nope. I think I did skip a screen. Okay, next we're going to talk about the minor arcana. And as I mentioned previously, the minor arcana is all of the other cards that aren't the major, and they're broken into 4 suits. So we're going to talk a little bit about each suit and their meanings overall, their overall general meanings. So swords, which also represent the element of air. And thank you, Ari. I'm so glad. I needed you here. She's got it. She has got it all together. Okay, so swords represent the element of air, and that represents our thoughts, attitudes, beliefs, our mentality, intellect, knowledge, and power, and it is a masculine element. The cups, which represent the element of water, thank you, are our emotions and feelings, our relationships, and healing. And this is a feminine element. Wands, which also represent the element of fire, represent our magic within, our higher self, the spirit realm, spirituality, intuition, primal energy, sexuality, sensuality, passion, creativity, and strength. And this is a masculine element. And then finally, we have the pentacles, representing the element of earth, and it's our physical world. So very fitting that earth being grounded, it's our physical world, what we create, what we manifest. It also signifies our career, money, success, our physical health. It's associated with our ego, self-esteem, our self-image, the physical self that we present to the world. And this is a feminine element. So we have 4 suits, and each one has its own, each suit has its own general meaning. And then those 4 suits, within those 4 suits, we have the court cards in each sort. And I kind of talked about this earlier. So we have the court cards, which are going to be 16, 4 per suits, 4 times 4. And the first one, or the lowest card in the court cards, is the page. And when you think of a royal court, the page would be one of the lowest positions in the court, and that represents newness, beginnings, and youth. Pages are generally young males in our traditional royal court. Excuse me, a traditional royal court. So, one moment. So as we deal with, there we go. So as we deal with the pages of each suit, the page in each suit has its own general meaning. So the page of cups would represent infatuation and innocence. The page of pentacles would represent focus and progress. The page of swords, invention and self-assuredness. And the page of wands, enthusiasm and motivation. Areas on it. I love this. We can co-moderate anytime. Yeah. Okay. And then the next one is the knight. And when you think about a royal court, the knight is the one that's armored and goes out to battle. So it's the actionary of the court cards. They are the actionaries, I should say. They indicate a decisive action may be needed when you pull those cards in a reading. So we have the Knight of Cups, which would point towards romance and honor. The Knight of Pentacles, reliability and decisiveness. The Knight of Swords, confrontation and debate. The Knight of Wands, which would be adventure and impulsivity. And we're going to go on to the Queen. So the queen is the mother archetype, the caregiver in the court, nurturer, protector. This card would indicate that you have areas in your life that you need to give extra attention and support to, or it may also point to being the receiver of such support. So it's either you're lending that support outwardly or you're receiving it as you're receiving it yourself. So the Queen of Cups has to deal with empathy and love. The Queen of Pentacles would be security and thrift. The Queen of Swords would be intelligence and clarity. And the Queen of Wands would be creativity and sensuality. And finally, our court card is the King. He is the leader, obviously. It indicates mastery, control of a situation, expertise, authority. And the King of Cups deals with sensitivity and diplomacy. The King of Pentacles would deal with financial stability and philanthropy. The King of Swords deals with logic and maturity. And then the King of Wands deals with bravery and leadership. Now, of course, you're not going to, if you're brand new to tarot, you're not going to remember all of this. The easiest way to get a feel for the cards before you really dig into remembering all of the different court cards is just remember that it's a progression. So you start with the page, you know that's going to be the beginner. You move toward the king, and you know that's going to be mastery. That's the easiest way I remembered it when I was starting. Okay, moving on. The numbered cards. So now we've done all of the minor arcana, includes the 4 court cards, and then the cards numbered ace through 10. So there are 40 numbered cards, and there are 10 per suit. And each number represents various situations we face in everyday life. So again, when you pull a number card, this is going to point more towards your everyday life or situations you're facing on a daily basis. So this is minor arcana, ace through 10. Ace, or the 1, is new beginnings, opportunity, potential. Number 2 deals with partnership, balance, and duality. Number 3, expressions, groups, growth. Number 4 is manifestations, foundations, stability. 5 is conflict, change, and instability. 6 is harmony, cooperation, and healing. 7 is going to be reflection, assessment, and control. 8 is mastery, accomplishment, and action. 9 is attainment, fulfillment, and fruition. And then 10 is going to be the end of the cycle, completion, and renewal. When I will share with you that, again, just like the court cards with the page being the lowest and then you move towards the king, it's the same principle with the numbered cards, with 1 being the beginning and 10 indicating the mastery or the end or the completion. I have a few ways that I remember that. Like I just said, I don't have these mnemonic devices for all of the 10 cards, but I will share the ones that I do have. So 1 is always going to be the beginning, like I said. 10 is always going to be the end, completion, or mastery. The way I remember 5 is that it's right in the middle, and it always indicates you're not either at the begin or the beginning, which indicates conflict. So 5 is going to be that conflict, that instability right in the middle. The way I remember 2 is because it's 2, so there's a balance. And the way I remember 4 being stability is I think of a table with 4 legs. Stability, foundations, 4. And that's pretty much all I got. I don't really have mnemonics for the other ones, but I mean, that's a really good basic starting. And as you start practicing with the cards yourself, you'll be able to kind of wrap your head around, oh yeah, I remember that 7s mean this or 8s mean this. So that, I believe, brings us to the end of our deck. The end of our 78 cards. This screen is just showing you where I got some of that information as I was putting this presentation together. One of the sites I recommend very, very highly is Biddy Tarot. You can go there and you can click into each card and get a definition of that card. It also gives overall definitions like what the suits mean and what the court cards mean, overall definitions. So that's a really good site. The major arcana, when I was researching that, I got that from tarot.com. And then the court card meanings I got from this really long website at refinery29.com. And all of this information is making its way to my Facebook page, which is All About Tarot on Facebook. So you can find it all centralized. I think I will also, now that I've got this presentation, I'll probably post that on there too, so you can reference it, the different things we talked about today. But that's my Facebook group, which is All About Tarot. So I believe if you just search All About Tarot, it should show up, and it has this same picture, the picture that's showing in my background, so you'll know you're in the right place when you find that. And let me, I think that was the last one. Yeah, let me stop the screen share. Okay. So now that we've talked about all of the cards, the 78 cards in a general way, does anyone have any specific questions about the cards or anything we went over that wasn't clear?
I do have a question. I'm curious about your insight on next year being a Hierophant year. 2 + 0 + 2 + 1 is 5 is the Hierophant. I thought I knew what we were getting into with the Emperor year this year, and then this year happened. So I'd love to hear just your take and your thoughts on that.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was something I was going to mention in my presentation and I didn't. So numerology plays a huge part in tarot as well. The numbered cards, as I went through the ace through 10, can also refer back to your knowledge of numerology, where a 4 would mean the same thing in numerology as it does in tarot. What she's referring to is taking a larger number and just like you do in numerology, bringing it down to its, I don't even know what you call it, composite number. Which would be, she added the 2 + 2 + 1, which is card 5. Yeah, which is the Hierophant. And so you can do that too. Like there's a huge connection between tarot and numerology. You can also do that with the court cards. Say for instance, you pull court card 21. Well, the numerology equivalent would be 2 + 1, which would be 3. So look up the meaning for 3 in numerology. So to your question, I hope I didn't confuse anybody too much. To your question, Annika, off the top of my head, the Hierophant is an awesome card to draw. Let me see if I can find it in the Light Seers Tarot, which I would highly recommend anyone trying to learn Tarot. Like I said, you do want to have a basis for, yeah, there you go. Oh, I've got Biddy Tarot too. Yes, you do want to have a basis for the tarot deck by starting with the Rider-Waite traditional deck, but this particular deck is one of my favorite because of the imagery is so intuitive. Like all you have to do is look at that card, and doesn't that look like what we want 2021 to look like? So the Hierophant is about enlightenment. I totally see that, the age of Aquarius. It's about, I think that's all I want to say. It's about enlightenment. It's about turning within. It's about community. It's all bright and shiny. I mean, look at that laugh. We all need a good laugh after 2020. So that's what I would think it would point to, is that collectively collectively, we are moving towards a more enlightened humanity, where those of us who consider ourselves enlightened are going to quickly become, I was going to say slowly, quickly become the norm. So I totally resonate with the saying, with the term of light workers. I believe that if you are in this group or even vaguely interested in this group, you are a light worker, and you are going to be one of those people who help usher in that new age of enlightenment. So yeah, that's what I have to say about 2021. It's the veil is going to keep getting thinner and thinner, and pretty soon everybody's going to be talking about connection to source or God or enlightenment. So yeah, definitely.
Can I add to that, Val?
Yes, please.
So when I first started my path, I'd get the Hierophant all the time, because it was what was going on in my life, right? It was like, sit in yourself, do that. The reason I love the Light Seers deck, because I got the Rider-Waite when I was taking the like long class, because it is really good to know. But I would say I learned more from the Light Seers deck than I did from the Rider-Waite, because it comes with this beautiful book and it simplifies it. And it also, like when I do my readings, I pull the keywords that it does, and then I pull the affirmation. And the affirmation for the Hierophant is, I am my own guru, and the guidance I need is rooted in my faith, my belief, and my unique essence. So when you think about that going into 2021, I think this year was so much about the other. We spent so much time this year focusing on that Emperor energy, which unfortunately was not a positive Emperor energy, and so much on right and wrong in this year. And I feel like going into a Hierophant year, which I had never heard of that, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. I think going into that, Val's absolutely right. The Age of Enlightenment is coming. The last time we had some of these things going on was when there was the Renaissance, and when there was all these amazing things happening, and when we were ready for that love and that light. And can you pull up that card again? Do you have the Hierophant right there? Like, that dude is happy, but he's happy in his own. Like, he does not need anybody else to be happy. He has found his path, and he is headed towards that light. And I think, hopefully, and Annika, I think you're right there. If I would have said Emperor energy at the beginning of this year, I would have been like, that's night. We're all going to be in our power, and it's going to be amazing. Yeah, well, we saw how that went. But power was that word, right? Everyone was fighting for power in this year. And I think next year, it's not about power. It's about healing. It's about love. It's about light. It's about finding what works for us as a culture, because this year was so damaging. So I'm just really like, ooh, I have whole body chills. I'm so excited for what's coming. I don't think it's going to be all easy. Just like anytime you do inner work, it's not easy. And it's going to require a lot of patience with ourselves and others. But hopefully that is the way it's going to go.
Great. I love that. I love that. Anybody else have any questions? How many people actually, oh, go ahead, Monica.
I heard on a podcast one time, they were talking about all these special rules for reading cards, like draw with your left hand, or it's a personal choice if you let other people touch your deck or shuffle your deck, or, you know, all these crazy kind of things. That, you have any idea or thoughts on that?
Boy, do I have thoughts, but let me censor myself just a minute. Ooh. Yeah, I have thoughts. Let me try to put it in a good way, because my Sagittarius energy is flaring up.
They're on Sagittarius too. Go ahead.
Do what works for you. Do what works for you. There is no right and wrong. If there were actual rules, I have broken every one of them, and I still do pretty good when I give readings. Yes, so the methodology or the thinking behind draw with your left hand, though, is an actual brain trick it's more or less trying to tell you, get out of your brain and don't draw the cards based on what you're thinking, but draw with your non-dominant, not specifically left, but non-dominant hand, to allow source to flow through you. Is basically what people who say use your non-dominant hand are. So, I mean, if that works for you, let it go. The number one tip that I would give to anyone who is wanting to read tarot for themselves or for others, trust your intuition. Like, that is even if I give you 10 more rules, you can wipe all those rules away and just be like, but trust my intuition. Like, that is the number one rule. So if the other day, somebody told me, I heard you weren't supposed to draw cards for yourself, that you should let a professional draw for you. And I'm like, what? Who told you that BS? So do what works for you, and trust your intuition. It's like, we can do a whole nother thing on how to trust your intuition, because you're not going to be able to do, I hesitate to tell you what you can and can't do. You will be able to do a much more effective reading when you trust your intuition over all of the various rules and meanings of the cards.
Thank you.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
I would also, and I love that you censored yourself there, Val, because I would have not.
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
I think that's the thing. I've been told I do pretty gosh darn good readings, and I pull with my right hand. And I've also been told before, well, you're not supposed to use a book, and you're not supposed to look it up, and you're not. No, like, you do what works for you, and you figure out what works for you, because these are a tool to get a message from source or God or your guides or whatever that is. And so why on earth would it be one way or another? And the same thing, like, I use Biddy for like over a year. I used Biddy Tarot to look up my cards until I got the Light Seers deck, and then I got more comfortable with it. And now I don't have to look up most of the cards, but I still do sometimes, because sometimes there's a specific message in the definitions that happen. So I'm right there with you, Val. Like, I think it's crazy to say you have to do something in a certain way in spirituality. Like, it just does not resonate with me. And you have over in the chat here people talking about how the writer deck does not resonate.
It never resonated with me either.
Yeah. And it does resonate with me just because I now understand the pictures so much more, but it doesn't resonate as much as the Light Seers, because this is such a beautiful deck. And so that makes it easier. So I'm right there with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
Annika had something that can you share about that a little bit, Annika?
Yeah, for sure. What I said in the chat is that sometimes my intuition will guide me to a meaning of a card, and it doesn't match what's written in the book, or it matches what I've learned about the card to be correct. But if I go with my gut and I say, okay, this is what the cards are telling me, this is what's coming through, that resonates and that hits so much harder than whatever the correct meaning of the card would have been. And the card will guide you to that intuitive answer. You just have to be able to listen to it. I found that my cousin just started wanting to read tarot, and I told him, okay, here's what you do. Pull a card, try and figure out what it means to you, and then check the meaning in the book. And almost every time he got it. He got the correct meaning just by looking at the card and just feeling the card. So you just have to trust what's coming through.
Absolutely. Practice. Yes.
Yeah, and I would say this, I do think it is helpful if you have somewhat traditional pictures, because my first deck of tarot I got was an Art Nouveau deck, and it was beautiful, but there was no meaning on it. It was just pretty pictures. And that makes it really hard to read a card. Now, I might be able to go back and use those cards now that I'm more intuitive and I can listen more and use those cards for something else. But I do think, like, the Light Seers is such a great deck because it is visually very much like the Rider-Waite. It just is a different picture. And then Jody got me this deck for Christmas, and it's all animals, but it is the same imagery. Like, that's the 10 of Swords, which is crows. That's dark. Good gravy, poor crow. Yeah, I love these too. Or like the 8 of Cups is the squirrel turning away from all of his acorns, which is very much 8 of Cups imagery. So like I would just say if you are going to pick a deck that's not traditional, having a tie into that traditional thing. Speaking of though, Val, can you put in, well, they can find you on your Facebook page. And if you aren't on Facebook and you need to connect with Val, you can connect with me through Meetup. But Val, you have some specials going on, right? And something new you're going to offer.
Yes. Okay. So my special is going into, I offer readings, and it's going to be $20 off going into January. I might do $21 off just because it's 2021. But I was not able to set that up on my site. Like I couldn't find a way to set up a coupon code. So if you're interested in getting reading from me, you will need to contact me directly so that I can adjust the pricing so that you can get that $21 off. And then I'm also going to be starting tarot coaching, which is where you go to the cards. I just love using this. I'm going to say it again and again until you guys get sick of it. It opens a conversation up with source. So tarot coaching is opening that conversation up with source, honing in on what it is you want to work on in your life, and then moving to various tools that can help you. I hate to call them assignments, soul work. I don't like to call it homework, but soul work. So that'll be something that will be on my site very soon. And I am going to drop a link for my new site, which I finally got worked all out. The coaching is not up there. Nope, I spelled that wrong. Don't pay attention to that. The coaching is not up there, but you will be able to book a session with me. Second one is right.
So also keep in mind, for those of you who are wanting to practice a little bit, we've got a few different options coming up. We've got a Val's event on Monday night. That's 5 p.m. Mountain Time for practicing with that, which is a great way to do it because you get to do it one-on-one. And then we have another card pull coming up on Sunday the 3rd. So watch for that there too. Val, maybe you can talk a little bit about the bad cards because that comes up a lot where I have people who are like, oh, I hate it when I get those cards. And I love getting Tower and Death.
I do too. So, and also I didn't talk about reversals. So let's talk a little bit about actually reading the cards. Now that we know the meaning of the cards, we'll briefly go over reading the cards. So when you do a reading, it's going to be more of an interplay between the cards. So some people will shuffle the deck where the cards are, some are up and some are down. And when you place a card that is reversed, which means it's upside down for you, it means the reverse meaning of the card. So what's an easy one? I don't know. Ari, give me a sample card. I don't know. Well, let's go. There's the.
Well, like.
Let's talk about. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head too.
I'm just going to pull this one because I know what this one means. The 10 of Wands is talking about at the end of your journey, getting rid of your burdens and moving forward. If it was reversed, it would be indicating a need for you to get rid of your burdens and a need for you to move forward and a need for you to let go of what's no longer serving you. And I love the way Ari does reverse cards because she will say that it indicates that, but at any point you are able to turn it upright and move forward with the actual meaning or message that the card has for you. So it's always a personal choice if you choose to read reversals. I don't read reversals per se, but I intuitively get hits on if I pulled this card for you and I knew that you were not letting go of your burdens, I would know that that's the message I need to give you. So it would be the same as if I pulled it in reverse. I hope that makes sense. It's whatever works for you, again. To Aries' question, yeah, let's talk about those cards because sometimes those cards like really spook people out and I've never had that reaction to the card, but I can totally get it. So the Tower is one. And it's generally pictured in a traditional deck as a huge tower that's crashing and burning and on fire, destruction. Why would you freak out? Well, say looking for a card about your career, and all of a sudden you pull the Tower and you're like, oh my God, everything is on fire. I'm headed for a shitstorm. But I always see this as a good thing. Like the old has to fall away first before it can be replaced with the new. So I always, and it's probably my optimistic nature, but yeah, so a tower generally points to destruction, but it's not necessarily a scary card because sometimes we have to go through a period of destruction before we can rebuild. There's also the devil. Like, why would you pull a devil? Why is that in there? I thought tarot was supposed to be good. But the devil card talks about addictions. I hesitate to say bad things crutches that you rely on, maybe is what I would say. But look at the imagery of this one. He's got his hands out. He's pretty hot for a devil. He's got his hand out and he's trying to offer you whatever he's offering you, but that's like representing you and you're tied by the strings. And so it's letting you know that everything that he's offering comes with strings attached. You want to, I mean, if it comes up in a reading, it could be pretty much anything. Look out for the strings attached to the situation or whatever someone may be offering you. But generally, I don't think of it as a bad card. I think of it as, I hesitate to say warning, but warning is the word that comes to mind. A guidance, letting you know not to be attached to false premises, not to be attached to addictions. Ari, you got something on that?
Yeah, so like on the traditional card here, oh, just dropped them all in my lap. So you see how there's chains around their necks, but you see how loose those chains are. So like literally all they'd have to do is slip out of those chains. And it's the same thing when you get the devil card in a reading often is whatever is bogging you down, whatever is holding you, whatever addiction, whatever anything is your choice. So you can choose something else. Is that what you were going to say, Karen? Yeah. So that's again where the traditional cards, like what she was saying with somebody holding your strings, like you can just clip those strings, you can walk away from it. The traditional cards, if you start really looking at them, which is why it was nice to take that long class, you can see those meanings and that kind of thing. Because yeah, I mean, there's no point in staying hooked up to that devil. So the devil's an interesting one for sure. Real quick story. So I'm not going to tell you who it is. I'm sure she'll tell the story at some point, but one of our beloved members reached out to me today and said she had kept getting cards about tricksters and about like someone was being sneaky and somebody was doing something, and she kept getting cards in all of her readings. And she found out today that her son has been charging her credit card for the last month for video games, $1,000. So yeah, so she was like, oh, the cards have been telling me and I haven't been able to put the pieces together and done it. So like, pay attention when you do get cards like this. That's why I love them, because they're giving you a heads up. They're saying, pay attention, watch what's going on. Someone's not treating you well. And sometimes this is you. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes this is you. Yep. But yeah, it is. And look at the cards around it.
Yes. And so the last one that is a bad card would be death. Nobody wants to pull a death card, but it's such a good card. I mean, especially, I'm trying to see what the traditional one looks like. I really like this one. I mean, look at that bright, shining light, but it's cloaked in the shroud of death. You can't get to that new beginning without going through death. And I like how this one is actually labeled death and rebirth.
Yeah.
And that's the way I always think of the card, as death and rebirth. There might be some form of death, some loss that you're going to experience, but you also have the opportunity for that new fresh start, that new beginning.
I think the other negative cards, swords can be really tough.
Yes.
For sure. And especially the 10 of Swords.
Yeah. And when you think about the swords as, like we talked about the meaning of the suit overall, it talks about, it just flew out of my head, communication. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Our thoughts, our beliefs, what goes on in our mind. So I don't know about you, but that can often get kind of dark and kind of self-critical, which is why the imagery in the suit of swords is so dramatic. I mean, 10 swords in the back of his back is pretty dramatic, but it talks about our thoughts, which are sometimes our worst enemies. So that's why that card is so morbid. I mean, that suit is so morbid, but always an opportunity. And it's pointing to, I love drawing that suit, because it's pointing to, okay, what thoughts, what am I thinking that's holding me back, that's keeping me from where I want to go? Oh, I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that. Oh, look at that, 10 swords in my back. Okay, let me change my thoughts. So it's, I mean, always, you can flip it around and make it a positive.
What you got there, Annika? Is that death?
I like that one.
Ooh,
From the
that's
Star Spinner Tarot deck, and she's holding a baby. And I just love this death card so much. It's opened up my relationship with the death card incredibly.
yeah, I like that. I love getting a death card. Like death and tower. Tower is always a little scary because you never know what's, like, the rug is going to get pulled out from underneath you. But good things always happen after tower. Once you get through tower, good things are on their way. It gets inevitable. So usually if I pull tower within a week or so, I'm pulling sun, and that makes me very happy. So I like
And
that.
that's why it can be such a tool to use these in your day-to-day life, or even if you only do weekly, because how beneficial is it to know that something like the tower is about to show up in your life before it does? I mean, not that the tarot cards can tell the future, but they're energetic tools. So wherever your energy is setting, you're able to pick that up with the cards. And if your energy is setting towards your life is headed for a tower situation or a death situation, it's so beneficial to know that ahead of time, so you can prepare your energy for it, or prepare yourself or your life for it. So I love
But I think that's a good point, because I know some of the people in this room, and I know how they can tend to go negative. So I would say, like, be aware that if you get the tower, if you get death, if you get that, that's not to move forward in fear. That's
Right.
to build your energy up and get ready to move past it. Because I think that's a big thing, is that it's very easy to get stuck in that fear. Fear is such a human thing, and we all do. I mean, I fear all the time. So like, just know that it is an opportunity for you to ground yourself and be ready for that, so it doesn't knock you flat on your face.
Yes. Any other questions before I move on to this last bit here? No? Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is actually doing a reading. Once you get familiar with the cards and with the meaning, and Aries an excellent card reader, tarot reader, but you don't usually just pull what you can when you're starting. Pull just one card and be like, okay, what does that mean for my life? I highly suggest you do that. If you're just starting, it's a good way to start. But generally, you pull more than one card and you lay them out in what's called a spread, if you choose to lay them out in a spread. A spread would be the easiest way to learn. I would recommend, if you're a beginner, a 3-card spread, and those cards would signify past, present, possibility. I hesitate to say future. I always say possibility. Past, present, possibility would be a 3-card spread that you could practice on. And so as you do that, I just pulled 3 random cards and I'll show them to you. It's more about the interplay of the cards together than it is about the cards as they stand singly. So, Ari, these are random cards, but why don't you give us your interpretation of if you had pulled these 3 cards in a spread, and talk about the interplay of the cards together, if you
Okay,
would.
tell me what they are, because I'm
So we've got the 10 of Wands,
okay.
the King, the Emperor, and the 10 of Pentacles.
Okay. All right. So how I do readings, this is a good opportunity because it's different for everybody. So how I do readings is I pull my book out and I do the keywords from each card, and then I do the affirmation, and then I open myself to my intuition and to messages from whoever, and see what they have to say. And I also glance to see if anything pops out of the book, but I don't read it all. This is where that right and wrong thing goes, right? Because there's a lot of people who say, absolutely don't use the book. Brenda Hardwick will tell you flat out, do not use the book, throw the book away. And I'm like, but the book has so much to tell me. The more I do them and the more I practice, the more I don't need the book. But it's okay to have a safety net. It's okay. We put so much pressure on ourselves to be a certain thing, right? And we don't need to do that. Like, in my opinion, it's okay to use any crutch you want to use for as long as you want to use it, if it's working for you. So if we went to the 10 of Wands, I would go to the 10 of Wands here, and we're going to say they were all upright. So taking on too much, an opportunity to free yourself from heavy burdens, obligations, finding yourself close to a successful outcome, the need to prioritize, or a message to keep going. So probably in all of that, one of you or all of you found at least one of those phrases or words that really struck with you. Now, I know for me, if those cards were for me, which they must have been, because Val was like, Ari, pay attention. So if it was me, I'm going to know, like, literally, I have scheduled 34 events for this. So I, in this past, have scheduled way, way, way too much, right? Have set myself up for that. But what the affirmation is in this deck is, I release my burdens into the ethers, knowing that the universe will help me to tend to the essentials. Take the pressure off of yourself, right? All of this pressure you put on in your recent past, it's not necessary. And I bet you almost everyone in this room resonates with what I just said. We've all put pressure intensely on ourselves to be a certain thing, to learn a certain way, to go faster on our spiritual path, to do more for our kids, to whatever that is. Like, it stacks up. But the reality is that if you look at the deck or the card she has there, she has help, and she doesn't need to carry all of that stuff, right? She could put more. That animal's ready to carry more. That's what that animal's for. She doesn't need to keep everything with her. So drop some of the shit. You don't need it. Excuse my language, but just drop it. Okay. So then if you go into the Emperor is a great card. It's super powerful. However, Emperor has that big masculine energy. Okay, Cindy's saying there's a need to hurry. We're going to come back to that, Cindy, because you're not the only one feeling that right now. So if you go to the Emperor in this deck, the Emperor is the divine masculine, authority, power, a natural leader, structure, strategic and analytical thinking, taking action, and promotion. And the affirmation is, I lead the circumstances in my world with confidence, harmony, and generosity. So basically, you've loaded yourself up with all of these things, if this was a reading that you were getting, and you're headed in this direction. At this exact moment, it's time to stand in the knowing. It's time to realize that you are where you're supposed to be, and you can lead with the confidence that you have set yourself up for. So drop the stuff that's not working for you so you can stand in that power, right? So he's sitting there, look at him. He's like, I got it, right? Emperor energy and all the king energy is like that. These guys are like, meh. So like in that situation for me, when, even if you were going to go with the past, present, and the possibilities, which I like that a lot, you've got the idea that you've put so much on yourself. If you drop some of that, then right now and be in the now, you can be in that Emperor energy, and you can lead in that. And leading doesn't always mean that you're leading a big group. Like for me personally, yeah, it's going to be leading a big group. I've got this big group that I've started with. But for you, it might be leading your home. It might be leading yourself. It might be leading your pets to a certain thing. Like you can find in this what works for you. So that's what I would say there. Then the 10 of Pentacles. Pentacles are really fun. To me, Pentacles are very often about money. So the 10 of Pentacles is spiritual and material abundance, community, generosity, wealth and prosperity, and building a legacy. So you put all that stuff on you, you're headed in this direction, you're going to let some of that drop off because it's not serving you, then you're going to sit in your Emperor power, right? And that Emperor power is going to allow you to lead yourself and lead whoever you're leading in this direction. And once you do that, your possibility is this idea of community, of wealth, of prosperity. So if you think for a minute this deck was not, or this card read wasn't for me, absolutely that card read was for me. Like that's where we're headed. This is what we're doing. With that being said, it probably had the same message in a different way for every one of you. where you could see this, okay, I put this burden on myself. I dropped that burden. I could sit in my own. I could move forward with this power in this way. And if I do that, I'm more likely to be abundant in the future, whether that's with community or money or both. And then that's the really powerful one. I am successful and I share my wealth with those I love. So that's all about the fact that abundance comes to you when you give abundance out. And abundance doesn't have to be money. It doesn't mean you have to give everything to everyone. It's what can you give? So this reading in general, for me at least, if I was reading it for myself, basically what I'm going to tell myself is, if I want this possibility in my future, I sure as hell better drop some of that stuff that I'm carrying with me that's not serving me, and really ground myself in that emperor energy so that I can make this happen, which is exactly the reading that I would need today. So I appreciate that, Valorie, but that's how I, like, when I go through a reading, that's how I do it. Now, normally if I was one-on-one with someone, in the middle of that, I would wait for messages to come in.
Yep.
And then I would give those messages to you. And that's been the biggest thing for me with doing tarot readings, is that it has helped me start hearing or knowing in a stronger way than ever. So the more you practice, like I do my tarot cards every day, and I pull for other people multiple times a week, because the more I practice with it, the more I have the understanding, the more I can see pictures, the more I can, like, it's unreal in the last 2 months how my intuition has opened up strictly from my tarot reading. So I would highly recommend you pull cards daily for yourself.
Yes, especially if you're trying to develop your I hesitate to say develop your intuition. Your intuition is always there. Develop your trust in your intuition. So if you're working on developing your trust in your intuition, tarot cards are an excellent way to do that. I love that. So Ari gave an excellent sampling of how the cards play together. Like, you're not just reading one and saying, take this, and then reading one, but they all play together. They all tell a story, the tarot story. So, and you can get, as you get more practice, you get more elaborate, you would draw more than 3 cards or whatnot. But I love that. That was an excellent example. And I always say, I don't draw the cards, Spirit draws the cards, Spirit just uses my hands. So which again is trusting your intuition, trusting that whatever you call that spirit or force outside yourself is going to guide you and is going to let you know what messages are for you. Basically, the cards are just a way for you to get that message. A fun way. I love them.
You can also, if you draw a spread for yourself and you just aren't getting it, like there's something that's weird, you can ask very specific questions or draw again. As long as you're not hiding from what it's trying to tell you, as long as you're not like, well, I don't want the tower, so I'm going to pull until I don't get the tower. You can ask for clarification. That's what I love about the cards. They'll figure out ways. Like, I feel like your guides are constantly going, okay, she didn't get that one. What are we going to do to get her this next information? All right, she didn't get that. Quick, let's figure it out. Give her an angel number. Wait. Maybe have her notice this deck and she can pull from this deck. Like, I feel like that is constantly going on around me, where my guides are like, I will help you figure this out if you're willing. So yeah, don't hesitate to open up your mind to the fact that if you don't get a card, which happens to everybody, Valerie's been in the middle of a reading before and been like, this makes no sense to me. Like, we're going to have to come back to this. And then it comes back and it works really well. So like, it's okay to not get it the first time around.
And that's another thing. I think Cindy, you commented that you didn't know you could do that. Was that you didn't know that you could pull extra cards? Is that what you were saying?
If you didn't get excuse me, I have the hiccups. If you didn't get the right answer, you could look at another card.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not so much the right answer. It's more that if you don't understand the answer, like if it's just not resonating with you and you're like, guys, I'm not getting it. At that, literally, you will hear me in my office in the morning go, that card, I don't get it. So you're going to have to give me some other answer here, because
so it's not if you don't like the answer.
No, you can't make it say what you want. I mean, you can.
I figured that I just wanted to clarify that, because it just didn't sound, I was trying to,
No, it's more if you don't get it. Like if you get a card and it's just like, this does not feel right for me. It could be there's a hidden message in it that for some reason you're not getting. they'll
Right.
figure out another way to tell you. At least that's my
Okay.
experience.
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's something I do in my readings now too. I've kind of, which is interesting, I've kind of got into my own flow of how I do my readings. So I generally draw 5 cards to start with, but if one of those cards, like I said, they'll tell a story. But if I have one of those cards that I'm just like, that doesn't belong in this story, I'll draw 2 more cards and I call them clarifying cards. And usually those 2 additional cards will tell me what the relevance of that card, and I'll be like, oh, okay, that does fit in the story. That does
So
make
when you like say on that deck, how do you know when to do like a past, present, future, or what kind of reading was that you just did, Valerie?
So I just pulled 3 random cards, and I kept it to
Okay.
3 because I thought 3 would be easy to work around and do a mini reading.
Okay.
It's totally up to you. And it has a lot to do with like what question you're asking, what you're looking for clarification in.
Okay.
Sometimes all you need is that past, present, future. Sometimes you're just gonna pull cards until you feel good with what's laying in front of you.
Until the message comes clear.
Right. Or
Okay.
if you're looking for a specific, I should have listed a website, but just Google tarot spreads and you'll see a million of them. So if you're
Okay.
looking for something specific to career, there are career tarot spreads, and so a spread is going to tell you as you place the cards. Let me see if I can do it in the air. Like I did past, present, future.
Mhm.
Not all of them are linear. So there might be one card here, one card here, one card down here, one card.
Got it.
And it'll tell you the meaning of each placement.
Okay. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, but again, trust your intuition, because you're going to search career tarot spread, and you're going to have 100 entries. So go
Okay.
with which one feels good to you.
Okay. Got it.
I will say this too. Amanda and Jody are in the process. They just started making in their little shop these card holders. And you can put your 3 cards here, but they're going to start making them with spreads on them so that you can then do the spread that's on the piece of wood for those of you who are beginners. So watch for that, because we just had a whole brainstorming session about how cool that would be. But like I will pull 3 cards every day, and then they will sit in here. So when I walk into my office, I see them. Because it helps again with like reminders, and also just with learning the cards, because the more you spend time with your cards, the more information they give you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm gonna definitely order that book. I mean, those cards
light
looked
reader.
amazing. They looked really good.
Highly recommend it. I highly. and they're just
Seriously,
so
we
beautiful.
should be making money off of that. I don't know how many of those decks we have sold over the last.
Well, the Raider Weight, I can't ever say it. I've read it and I played with it. There was like nothing, zilch, and nothing. And I tried a few times, and I was highly disappointed, so I just stopped. But then I got this oracle.
I've got
Ah,
and I started pulling 2 cards every morning just for myself. And I actually, I right when I picked them up, so I get the chills even now. When I started pulling them up and I talked to them, and yes, thank God I live alone. and it started feeling good. So I figured that's it. It was the other deck. It wasn't me. It was just, I wasn't getting that feeling.
so
Yeah.
the 7 card spread in that book of that
This one?
deck. So in the Lightkeepers deck, the 7 card spread is my favorite spread. I use it with all of my cards.
Really? I'll have to try that. I've
So
only been
check that
practicing
out.
with the 2 just to get the feel.
Yep.
And read the cards and see if it resonates. And
Yep.
oh my God, it is amazing. Every morning I keep it right in my bedstand, and I pick 2
it's
cards.
a great deck.
And that's a good point that you brought up, because it's not always about just the imagery and do I understand the imagery and do I like the imagery. It's
Right.
about the energy of the cards.
Yeah,
if you don't connect
definitely.
with the cards, there's a reason why. Don't give up. Find another deck.
Well, see, I
that's
almost
why-
did, because I
that-
couldn't understand what everybody was talking about. That feeling you get. But with
Well-
these cards, I understand it now.
I also think, Cindy, that starting with oracle cards, which is what these cards are,
Right.
starting with oracle cards is a really good start, because
Okay.
they're easier in the sense that they guide you so much more. It's softer.
Right.
It's not as much symbolism and not as much
Right.
things, and there's always a book. So
True.
I am a believer when you first start that oracle cards can be a really good way to ease you in.
They're
You-
fast. They're great. I
Yeah.
love them.
Yeah, the 7-card spread
I'm
is
gonna have to.
in the top of the light keepers, and this is a great education oracle deck if you don't have it, because it is all the light keepers. So it's just a cool way to realize how all
Yeah.
religions are tied together,
Mhm.
which I really like, and other things that are not religion. But the 7-card spread is you and a strength you have, your life and what's happening now, something that supports your happiness, an obstacle or challenge you are overcoming, what your angels want you to know, what your guides want you to know, what your heart wants you to know.
I'm gonna have to try that
I'll
tomorrow.
type it here in the chat so you guys all have it. But it is, what, go ahead, Val.
I was gonna say Annika dropped a link too for some great spreads in the
Awesome.
the chat.
It is, I think, having a few spreads that you memorize that you have when you're lost, when I'm having a rough day and I am like, I need some guidance, I can go to that one. And especially with those last 3, what your angels want you to know, what your guides want you to know, and what your heart wants you to know, the messages are always really comforting.
Right.
Really comforting. And so I use that with all of my decks, whether it's oracle or tarot. I use it a lot.
And Cindy, that group on Facebook, I think you're a member, but I'm not sure. But that's a great place to pop in and ask those questions. That's what that group is for.
I just requested to join.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
So yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
that's good that you have that. I didn't realize that. I didn't see that before either.
It's
So
more, yeah, that specific group is more geared towards learning about working
Good.
with tarot and oracle cards. So if you have questions about the cards, about spreads, great place.
okay.
Which one is that? Ooh.
Yeah, Misha's shown a few different decks. Why don't you tell us about it, Misha?
So this deck right here, this is an oracle deck that is absolutely amazing. It's called the Secret Language of Light oracle deck. And I'll open it up. And I have several oracle decks, but this is absolutely my favorite one. And I'll just grab one card out and just show this one. And it's called, this one is Inner Voice. But what's really cool about this, and this is one that I definitely use the book with, because every one of them has, and I actually had this card actually tabbed, but it talks about it. It actually has inner reflection or inspired reflections and actions. It has journal work, and it has a meditation. Every card has a meditation that goes with it, and reflections and actions, and some journal entries that you can go with also. And the art is stunning on every single card. You know, there's just another.
I love the decks that have the journal prompts in that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that one is variants. But the tarot deck that I got some others. I started with the Rider-Waite, and yeah, no, didn't connect with it. But this one I absolutely love. It's a very shamanistic deck, and
I've seen that.
it's just very innocent, and it's easy to understand. This is the Emperor card.
Look at that.
You know, so you can definitely see the symbology of the Emperor, and yeah. And so my card for 2020, I just thought it was hilarious, was the Chariot. And it was also my card for January that I pulled. And this year has just been, yeah,
Pretty
like,
much, yeah.
yeah, like that.
I have a post-it that says "When in doubt, Chariot," because sometimes you just gotta hold on for dear life and go.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so there are really amazing cards, but also very rich in symbolism, but also really easy to understand. And they've got a great book that comes with them also if you need to go to the book.
That's awesome. I
But
think it's really important to know, like, you have to find the deck that resonates with you. Traditionalists in tarot, if you want to be a traditionalist, that's great. If you want to spend years of your life like digging in and really understanding the Rider Waite or one of the older decks, like you can do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's an amazing skill to have. That being said, just like anything else, I think in life, I don't think it has to be as hard as we make it. Finding a card deck that resonates with you, whether that's an oracle deck or a tarot deck, that works. And remembering that it just takes practice. I, for almost a year straight, read every deck I had every morning.
Wow.
Every morning I would pull a card from every single deck. And yeah, it was a lot. And I
so good.
well, but the reality is that for me, I needed to see those synchronicities. I needed to see how the decks said the same things. I needed to see all of that because I was having trouble with my faith. So for me, it really allowed me to do that. Then all of a sudden it was like, why am I doing this? And now I pick one deck or two decks. And if I miss a day, the world's not going to end, because I also now can hear a lot more of my guides and their messages. So they're not using that as a tool to communicate with me in the same way that it was before. But you have to find what works for you, because pulling a card from every deck might not be something that you want to do or something you're capable of doing every day. But I would say make the time in the morning to pull a card. Make the time if you can, because it really does help you kickstart your day. And then you can pull a card at any point during the day to check in. But there is something about before your day starts, allowing yourself to say, what do I need to know?
Yes.
To me, it's been very, very powerful.
I agree. Totally agree. Yes. Yes. I'm doing I do Monday group tarot readings for that very reason. Like you do it in the morning to set up your day. I do it on Mondays to set up the week. So definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, especially with the new year coming up, there's some amazing New Year spreads that you can do.
Oh, I've seen some of those. Yeah.
I did one at I should go back and find those notes and see what mine said, because I remember it being weird. Little did I know what weird meant at that point. But Annika, you do card readings too, right?
Do you have a site?
Yeah, I can drop my website for sure. I would love to do that.
So when you do a reading, how does it flow with you?
That's a really big question. You know, that's a really big question.
I do, but that's what I love, is it's different for everyone.
Yeah, so what usually happens with me, I love to pull an oracle card to start the reading, just so I get a sense of like the tone, especially if it's a general reading. I know what we're focusing on, I know what we're talking about. Moonology is my favorite oracle deck. I will go back to it every single time. I love Moonology. And then I usually let my querent pick a deck. Yes, Moonology, love her. I let my querent pick a deck, and I just let what comes out comes out. The way I shuffle, cards will literally just fly out, and it's my favorite thing every single time, because people are like, "Whoa," and I'm like, "Yeah, they just do that." And then I read the cards as they come out. I've always pulled clarifying cards. The way I shuffle, cards aren't reversed very often, so when a reversal comes through, I'm like, "Oh, that's important," and I'll read a reversal.
So see, I do an oracle. I start mine with a personality quiz so that I know how to communicate with the person that I'm talking to. I pull 3 cards from the tarot just with what do we need to know, and then I pull an oracle if it feels like we need to clarify. or they have a specific question after. And when I shuffle, they definitely have reversals because I love reversals. They're like everything to me. And when I shuffle 3 times and I visualize the person smiling and the person frowning. Don't know why. It's always just been the way that I've done it. And then I cut them once and then I pull the 3 cards with my right hand, which is why it's interesting that there's so many rules. So it's just so different for everybody. And that's what I think is so important to know. Like, there is no right, there is no wrong. And I'm sure that Annika's reading is going to be the exact same. We should do a reading for each other at some point, Annika.
That
So
would be fun.
because Val and I have done that, and it is so cool to see how the messages come through someone else, because what I can hear for myself or for Val is different than what Val can hear for me or for herself.
Yes.
Right? Because we all
So
hear
true.
things. So
Especially for yourself. I will hard
Yes.
third that. Like,
Yes.
sometimes I'm just not receptive to what's trying to come through. I went back and looked at my readings over the course of this year. I've been getting the same message over and over and over again. And I just was not hearing it. And then finally in December, it just like burst in. It was like, you can't ignore this anymore. I'm going to mess up everything else in your life, so you can't ignore this anymore. It was great. It was awesome. Very Tower.
And that brings up a point, Annika and Aries mentioned it too, and I don't do it as often as I should, but writing down the cards that you draw is really key, especially if you're a beginner. It does let you, as your skills develop, it lets you go back and look and find the deeper meaning in those pulls that you did maybe last week or last month. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that as well.
I would too. I didn't write them down. I only wrote down my big giant read I did on the 1st of last year. So I've got to find that. Karen, what were you going to say?
I keep a journal of all my readings, and I go in there and it's like, I got that same damn card again this week, and or several weeks in a row. I get the same card, and I go back to see what position it was in, to see where it might be shifting at least to somewhere else in the spread. So I'm making some kind of movement, even though I'm getting the same card. At least is it showing up in different places in the spread? And
yeah. It's the synchronicity that happens with card pulling is fascinating. It is fascinating. And you can't hide from it. You just can't. That's what I love about it so much. And I've had people say, well, I don't like it because you can find any meaning in any card. No, you can't. There are cards that are pretty general, but you cannot hide from a reading. So,
and especially when you're relying on your intuition like that, you can't. I did a reading for somebody and I was like, okay, so the way I do my reading is I tell you to focus on what you want to receive from the reading. Then I pull the cards. And then often after I've pulled the cards, I'll ask, what was your specific, or what do you want to tell me about, what are you asking? So this one reading I did, and this is speaking to the intuition and how you can't hide from the cards. She was looking for information on her career path. And I'm pulling all the cards and I'm looking at the cards. Now I could have said, this is talking about this in your career, and but I'm like, no, that is not the feeling I'm getting. And I'm just like, this is about a relationship. It might even be a romantic relationship. Like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, I was kind of thinking about that. And I'm just like, okay, well, there it is. Let's go on this reading then, instead of what you told me. So yeah, once you learn to trust your intuition, the cards are just a tool, but the message is going to come from elsewhere.
I've only done mediumship with tarot cards once, but oh my goodness, was that an experience. And it was so wild because messages were kind of coming through for her, things that universe wanted to say to her. And then she told me this person's name, and that's when the messages came through from him. All the cards came out at once, and I was like, okay, that's what we needed. That's the connection.
That's cool.
So you're saying your personal reading, like you were doing the reading and the medium came through you?
No, I was the medium in that situation. And someone wanted to communicate with her. Her son actually wanted to communicate to her a message, and it didn't come through until she told me his name. And then it just all came flying out. That reading was all sorts of, I'll have to tell you all that story sometime. But
what's interesting is as you're talking about that, I felt this barrier that you've put up of I'm not quite there yet. So just so you know, they're saying, yeah, you are. So you're ready to drop that.
Okay,
Like,
good
they're
to know. It's
down. You got it. You got it.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's where practicing with one another in a safe group where you're not
Yes.
charging for it and where you're not doing that is such a powerful thing. Because when you do that, it's like when I never planned on doing tarot readings. I was sitting here one day and I looked over and I saw my deck and I was like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to do readings. And I was like, no, like that's not my intention. I don't ever want to do that. I still have yet to charge for one. So like for me, it was my guide saying, you have to learn how to hear us. So there you go. So doing it without charging took a lot of pressure off and allowed me to just like listen and to hear what was coming through to me and then to decide what was me and what was them, right, Val? So like that's where doing these, like on Monday we have this, next Sunday we have this. When we do these card pulls, it really just allows you to open yourself up to those messages, and the cards are just a tool. Like they're just a way for us to have something in our hands because we're human and we cannot trust our intuition because we're terrified. Like that's it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100% agreed. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the end. Do you have anything else you want to add, Val, or anybody else have? Oh, Sophia has a quick, you might, yeah, I'm going to let you get started, but I might have told a story earlier that I didn't say anyone's name.
No, it's fine. What part? What did you already I'm like, it's so funny. I was late to this because I have been when I pull my own cards for a while, like I've gotten to a frustration point where I haven't been pulling the past like 3 or 4 days. Like I'm frustrated because I keep getting cards that come to some form of there's trickery, there's deception happening, there's you need to be wary, you need to be paying attention, and they keep coming. And I was really at a point where I was like, I don't know who's tricking me. Like I'm pointing fingers at random people, like who's doing it, like what's happening? I don't understand. And it just came to light today that my son has been charging my husband's credit card for Roblox bucks. And it's the total of $800 in the past 3 weeks that my 10-year-old has been clicking nonchalantly. I want more. I want more.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the first thing that hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I knew this was coming. I knew it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. How many times has something happened and you're like, that's the tower.
Yeah.
Like where it's like this moment, and my poor husband regularly, I'm like, like it makes some crazy noise, and he's like, what? And I'm like, just things working together.
Connecting the dots.
All right, everyone. Well, Sophia, I'm sorry that happened. However, I love the synchronicity in it because
many lessons from this. Many lessons.
All right, you guys. Well, Val's information is over there. Remember, she's going to offer you a discount, so connect with her on her Facebook page. If you do not have Facebook, you can connect with me through Meetup. Val, I think you are a member of all 3 meetups, though, right?
No, just the Denver one.
Okay, so if you are on the same meetup group as Val, then you can find me there. Remember, also Val's stuff is listed on Fast Friends, which is another meetup group that Carly runs. But right now, during this time period, we have all of our events kind of cross-posted for the most part. So some of Val's events on her Facebook page are separated. So if you want to know more about that, if you've never had a reading from Val, I highly recommend it. She's very, very good. And as far as a coach goes, I don't think you could find someone more personable and chill to figure out how it works for you. So go with that there. That being said, you guys, make sure you come to the practice if you can on Monday night. And if not, next Sunday. And if you can't, and you want to practice, you guys, there's a lot of people who want to practice. So just throw it out in the group saying, I want to do practice tarot readings, and I'm sure other people will come out of the woodwork to say, yes, I want to do that as well. Practice makes perfect, and nobody expects anybody to have it down. So don't think you have to be like Val or like me or like Annika. Practice your own, and you'll find all of a sudden you get those messages, and it's so much fun. Like that's probably been the most fun on my journey, is all of a sudden when you start getting those messages and you're like, oh my gosh, I can, it's so cool. And when you're talking to somebody else and you say, well, this is what I'm seeing. So like, does that make sense? And they go, that's exactly what's going on. There is nothing cooler than that. Speaking of, there is also a channeling practice coming up, not this Monday, but the next Monday. Yeah. So if you have ever thought, I wonder if I can channel, you can. So come to that channeling practice and you can get some tips and tricks on how to do that too, because they all tie together. So all that being said, thank you guys so much. We have at 6 o'clock Mountain Time tonight an open forum on connection, how we're connected to each other, divine oneness. Alex is going to be taking the lead on that. If you have not experienced Alex, he has fabulous energy. So I'm very excited to see how this goes tonight. And we will see you all later. So
thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Val. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Carrie, can I hang on and ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Bye, Karen. Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on. You're muted. You're muted.
This is so weird because I looked you up and I almost sent you a message on Meetup and I wanted to ask you about your Reiki